Hello and welcome to the video. Today I'm going to be talking about my track Sensei. Sensei, of course, is that Japanese word for teacher, particularly a martial arts instructor. And I always love blending different elements in my music. I'm interested in bringing in those kind of like Japanese Asian influences into my music, as well as sort of my electronic and conceptual like music production with kind of more classical, orchestral kind of scoring. I love blending those things together. My process is a little bit more sort of conceptual, and my process is almost more like an electronic music producer, because I suppose that's really how I cut my teeth learning Logic. And I've got a really eclectic taste, so I've grown up listening to all kinds of different things. Now, one part of my story is actually when I was 18, I was fortunate enough to go to Japan for 2 weeks, and it was just a completely like otherworldly experience. It was this place where it had this, I have no idea how to explain it. We always talked about the fact that it's sort of, you never wanted to leave, but you also couldn't wait to get home. You just had to try new food because there's no other choice, unless you want to eat KFC and McDonald's the entire time that you're in this amazing place, which of course you don't want to. So you've got to force yourself to eat stuff and try and adapt to their culture. And it is so different and polite and interesting and nuanced. But what's amazing there is amongst kind of Tokyo's metropolis, which is sort of where we were staying, you'd still find these shrines, Zen gardens, and there's temples all over the place and stuff like that. And there's this blend between the modern digital metropolis, and ancient culture. And just, it's so interesting to find that blend. And I think in a way that sort of pokes through in this piece, because I was actually playing with the idea of sort of something in the idea of a theme, something like the Last Samurai, which is just a fantastic film, great score. And I was just playing with this idea of this sort of the typical the typical picture that you get in a film of, like, a martial arts master or a teacher, and he's teaching his student and all this kind of stuff, almost montagey. So that was the thing that I was originally playing with, this noble warrior sort of riding through the rolling green hills, and all this kind of stuff. But actually, I've had this piece on the back burner for about a year and a half maybe, and it's one of these pieces where I decided to come back and rework it for release. Otherwise, it just sit on my hard drive and go nowhere. So I revisited it and actually really breathed some new life into it. And so what I ended up with was actually this score that, it sort of reflects like this idea, this picture for me in my mind of this kind of this noble character, this noble warrior sort of riding through these villages and all that kind of stuff that you might get a little bit stereotypical maybe. But then I was also interested in, but then what happens if I take that and put it together with my love of sci-fi and sort of digital and music, electronic music? What happens if those two worlds meet, of honor and culture and precision and nobility, and then this other side of kind of, I don't know, it's wild, it's new, it's interesting, and sort of and sci-fi, even like a sci-fi movie kind of thing? What happens when you put these two things together? So that was sort of then became the second wave for this piece, and what really gave me sort of a new sonic picture, if you like, a new sound picture, to see where I could take that piece, how I could grow it and evolve it. So it kind of went from this, stereotypical kind of movie picture in my mind of like, what could I imagine happening to this music and all that kind of stuff, which I've always got in mind. But actually, this was something where about halfway through the compositional process, and I'm refining it, I'm suddenly like, and what if I just put these two things together? What happens if I add these two together? And in fact, there's this great anime I love called Samurai Shampoo, I think it is. And I think it may be made by the same guys as Bebop, is that right? And they play with this tension of, it's this kind of feudal Japan thing, but the music for it is all hip hop and beatboxing and stuff like that. And it's a really contemporary and interesting mix. I love that. So I'm sure on some level, subconsciously, that must have filtered in. But in a lot of things, you'll hear this in lots of pieces that I make, especially in my electronic music. I really love bringing in these kind of these Japanese and like sort of these Eastern influences into kind of modern contemporary music, and seeing what happens when those two meet. And I just think it's so interesting. I mean, even interestingly, I love kotos and zithers and stuff like that. And taikos are such an interesting drum. And of course, they feature in this piece. The Chinese zither and the taiko both feature in this piece because they're real, staples of this imagery, and they help take you away to that world. But I find it interesting when you take these timbres and these sounds and you marry them up with electronic percussion and also with a Western orchestra, a classical kind of orchestra sound. Just the pictures that you can create, and where does it take you mentally, and then in the process. But yeah, I love doing that. I love fusion. I do that in my normal songwriting. I'm never stuck into one particular style. There's blues, jazz, funk, country, gospel, worship elements that all kind of combine together, and sometimes it is literally just like, what am I in the mood to make today? What am I in the mood to make? And sometimes that's what drives it, and it may just be an emotion or a picture or a concept. But yeah, this is one of those examples where I really wanted to blend together these ideas of like, okay, yeah, let's create this picture of this guy, but then actually this other thing came in and something new and interesting emerged. I love the creative process sometimes because you're not sure what you're going to come out with. For me, I always think of cooking and colours and flavours and textures, and oh yeah, like this bit is sort of this bit's crunchy, this bit's juicy, this bit's savoury, this bit's sweet, and seeing what kind of notes and spices you can get in there. And much like we've sort of got this I don't know, this Asian Australian fusion thing going on in food, I think it is, that I've seen in some places. I guess I'm playing with that in my music a little bit somehow. But yeah, I love taking those approaches and seeing what ingredients work together musically, and can it create something new, something surprising. And that's definitely something that has taken seat in my composition and sort of my style as a producer, that I bring together these Asian influences, contemporary influences, orchestral influences, and electronic music production kind of process as a studio composer, if you understand what I mean when I say studio composer. Just seeing what happens in this moment and bringing these things together. So yeah, I guess that's a little bit about my track Sensei. And of course, while I'm thinking about it, like in some ways it's a homage to those that have sort of taught me and contributed to me and my life a little bit. Was something that really started to emerge, actually. I appreciate these sort of great teachers who've influenced me in my life, and so there is actually in some way a bit of a personal thing going on it. I sort of realised as I was working on the piece. But yeah, I hope you check it out and that you really enjoy it. I mean, at this point, I'm presuming that you may have listened to it to then be interested in watching a video of me talking about it. So, but either way, please feel free to check out the piece. If you've already checked it out, brilliant. Check it out again. Fantastic. If you are interested in using the piece for a piece of film or drama, theatre, whatever, or you're interested in me as a composer and working with me, please feel free to drop me a message or something like that. Drop me an email. But for now, I'm Jensen. If you've enjoyed this or found it helpful in any way, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe and all that goodness. And thank you for stopping by.